I just got the light on in time. Too funny. I've been doing this for obviously a long time now, 47, day 47 today, and I'm still rushing up and just so disorganized. And I'm such an organized person. So it's sort of like it's lunchtime for me for work, so I can come up and do this in my lunchtime. I hope you're all well. I hope everyone's taking care of themselves. Doing what you need to be doing. I'm starting to get a little bit antsy. I'm starting to feel like I want to go out now. So I flitted out this morning and looked after my daughter looked after my daughter's children for a little while. And that was rather nice, discussing UFOs and spaceships, making spaceships, things you do. But it's sort of, I sort of got outside and I felt so free today. It's the first time I've really felt that way. So I think I'm ready now for everything to go back to normal. Such a weird time, isn't it? I sort of miss going out, going to the movies, going out for dinner. And I'd like to get back to that soon. All right. I know we have people online because I can see there are a couple, but I'll wait till some more people come online and we'll do some readings. Oh, hey, Lenore, how you going? You're first up today. I just said we'll wait for a couple of, hey, Haley, how you going? Hey, Moira. Did you all get the bell? I went to do the reading. I thought I'll just wait till I see a few of you around. Okay, let's do this animal one, the Animal Spirit Guidebook. It seems to sort of throw me some days in how it wants to play. But anyway, we'll see what we get today. Oh, and there we go. Oh, we've got the bear. I like the bear. Hey, Joanne. How you going? Hey, Gigi. Oh, you're on early today. We've got the bear out today. I like the bear because this is about coming out of hibernation. And after I've done this, we'll have a little talk about that moon last night. Once I find him. As I do, not always is it easy to find. I'll get used to it sooner or later, I guess. Yeah, he's the first one, actually. I should find that easy, shouldn't I? I can count most times. The bear. This is waking from spiritual slumber and beginning anew. Beautiful. After a long winter, the bear arises from deep slumber. Hey, how you going? Hello. After a long winter, the bear arises from deep slumber. At first, the movement and effort are difficult, but the bear knows it's time to awaken and move toward the dawning light. The bear card represents an individual on the cusp of new directions and personal transformation. The initial weeks and months of this spiritual quest may feel tricky, cumbersome, and full of obstacles, but you have no choice, bear. Winter wanes, the warmth of spring emerges, and your transformation begins. This is about inner strength and yearning to grow. So that's the energy that's around at the moment. That's pretty cool, right? So a lot of you, he's out of hibernation now. No, you've got to come out of hibernation and do your spiritual growth according to that. So that was really nice. How did everybody find the full moon? I think it's still full tonight too. It'll be mostly full tonight, but it would have been pretty intense for many of you last night. Did you all get your crystals out? All right, let's read a Wisdom of the Oracle card. Oh, and there it is, mending. What are we mending, folks? Card 52. Oh, you forgot. You didn't feel it? I can never sleep on a full moon. I feel like I never get into a deep sleep. It's sort of like my sleep. Yeah. I never have trouble falling asleep. I always say to people I could fall asleep on the sharp edge of a razor blade. Falling asleep is not my problem. And the first maybe 3-4 hours I sleep. That's where my deep sleep is, and I sleep extremely well. And then after that, I'll just fade sleep. Yeah, staying asleep. It's the old people thing. And it's sort of like it feels as though I'm not really getting into a good sleep. I seem to sort of skirt around the edges of it. Oh, hey Jess, how you going? Hey Scott, how are you? Yeah, I love the photograph of your dog on the bed with the kids. Okay, mending. This is about forgiveness. Wow, okay. Making amends and healing after arguments. Each time we are hurt and allow the hurt to pass through us without understanding and integration, we accumulate an unwanted burden. And I always talk about what you store in your body, because we're not thinking about it anymore, we've got rid of it, but it stays in your body. All of it just becomes cumulative. This keeps us chained to the very things we need to heal: the pain, the memories, the echoes of resentment, and the arguments that we rehearse over and over. Now is the time for mending rifts, healing wounds, and letting go of the old hurts in order to reclaim your power. Now is the time to forgive, to release, to make peace, and to make amends to others. Set yourself free. So it's quite interesting. The forgiveness thing is always sort of a little bit of a what do you call it? Like a, go on, guys, I'm not going to have the words today. It's a little bit of an argumentative thing. I've said to people before, you need to forgive. And they're like, I'm not forgiving them. They're this, they're that. And I think, you need to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is not about the other person. I don't understand why everybody thinks it's about the other person, because it's not. It's about you. It's about you allowing the energy to go. Because sometimes when we hang on to things, it can be more damaging to us. And meanwhile, the person that we need to forgive has probably gone on their merry way and couldn't really care less about what we're doing. The Empress, that blew me away, because I thought, they were really nice readings again today, and I thought it was really nice. And I'd done the Empress, then the Empress shot out of the third deck and still came up as the main reading. So main energy. So yes, everybody's embracing their inner goddess at the moment. And that's why I said, even for guys, the goddess still means you're embracing that part of you that really sits under the divine feminine. So that's sort of around your intuition, your nurturing, all of that sort of really warm and fuzzy stuff. Everybody's awakening that. Let me just have a look, see what everybody's talking about. I am very well, thanks, Scott. Conscientious. No, it wasn't what I was after. Contentious. Yes, it was what I was after. Thanks, Lenore. It is a contentious issue. I don't really think people understand what forgiveness is. I think they think that when you're forgiving, you're letting someone get away with crap, and it's just not what it's about. The fact that someone's done something wrong that warrants, hey, Maria, how you going? Yeah, maybe we should look for another word other than forgiveness, shouldn't we? But we're setting ourselves free, basically, with the forgiveness we're giving. And it doesn't mean you're letting that person get off scot-free. Like, you're not just saying what you've done is okay. Not at all. But when we're forgiving, we're releasing the anger from ourselves, or that upset, or that frustration, all that stuff that's created that need for us to forgive someone. So in fact, we're allowing ourselves to let go of the energy. And that's where I said, you're not sort of doing it for the other person. You're not going to forgive them if they've done the wrong thing in terms of forgetting what they've done, but forgiving them to allow yourself to move freely is very big. And it's a really hard one too. I don't know how many of you tried this, but sometimes when you get upset with someone and you're trying to forgive them for what they've done, you sometimes find, and I've tried lots of ways of doing this, because they say, forgiveness has to be really felt. So it's all very well to say, oh, I forgive so-and-so for doing things, but do you really mean that? And if you try to feel it in your body, do you feel with your feelings that is what you're releasing. Because sometimes that sits so deep, it's really hard. Like you do it in the words, you go, yes, I forgive that person. Yeah, I've forgiven them already. I'm great. And underneath, you're not. It still lies seething underneath. It is really hard. And if you've had somebody do something that is unforgivable, or it's been done over a long period of time where it's sort of settled in your body, doing that is really difficult. So it's really hard. You've got to feel the forgiveness when you do it. And if you can't feel it, then you have to keep doing it until you feel it. I put a prayer of forgiveness up on my Facebook page some time ago that was really good. And it was a fair sort of way of saying it too. It was a nice way of sort of putting it across. But yeah, forgiveness is about releasing yourself from that energy, not carrying it around with you. And if you carry that pain around with you, it just, as I said to you before, it settles in your body. It doesn't go anywhere. And then the next time something happens, it just settles on top of that. And for many of us, what happens is that sort of starts to manifest as passive aggressiveness. And then you'll find someone will say something really untoward to you one day, something that really doesn't mean very much at all. And you find yourself in a screaming mess, totally upset and distraught over the smallest of things. And I think that's what they call the straw that broke the camel's back. So we have to let go. Yes, it makes you angry. That's right. And anger is another one, because we think anger is like an emotion, but it's a response to an emotion. So if you're not letting forgiveness go and you're hanging on to stuff, then you would become angry. And if anger gets into your body, it can create all sorts of pain. And it's okay to be angry. Like I always say, it's great to be angry. There's no problem. It shows you human. It shows you have a response to something, and that's fine. Getting angry is not the problem. How you manage your anger is a problem. Are you able to manage your anger by just being assertive and talking about what's hurt you and in what way it's hurt you? And if you've got someone who's ready to listen to that, it does help. But sometimes we can be angry for things that happened years ago, and we've got no way of. I remember somebody saying to me once something about somebody had died and they'd never had an opportunity to speak to them about something that they'd done. And it's really hard, because then you think, well, we've got the anger inside us now and we've got no way of fronting up to it. So if you've got something to say, don't wait to say it, because if you wait, you may never have the opportunity, in which case you're lugging that bitch around like a bloody like a bag of cement with you. Yeah, don't do it. Don't hold on to it. Find some way of working out. Now, I mean, some people can just talk about things. They can talk about things over and over and over and over again and still really have no answer to it, like it just, no matter how many times they talk about it. And I think that is because you're not allowing it to be released. You're not asking for that, allowing it to be forgiven, allowing those people to be forgiven. And if you keep going over it in your own mind, then you're still hanging on to the energy. You need to learn to release it by forgiving. Hey, Vancy. Oh, thank you very much. I'm thrilled to have you on board. I'm sure everybody is. You've got a beautiful crowd here. So definitely learning how to forgive is a challenge. It is, because sometimes we don't want to forgive people. We want to hold on to the anger. I'm not sure why that is. It's something to do with it makes us feel alive. And I've often talked about this, feeling that if we're suffering, we feel like we're real, like we're alive. So we somehow want to suffer. And I know that sounds really weird. But we do. We hang on to suffering because we feel alive when we're hurting, which is crazy, but we do. So, letting go of things often means that you have to Scott, no, it doesn't mean that. If you tell somebody you're angry and they're not responding, maybe it's the way you're telling them that you're angry. Because sometimes what we do is we hold it back and we hold it back and we hold it back, and then we fire a whole heap of stuff at people and they just respond by getting angry. That's not helpful at all. So what you need to do is you wait until the anger subsides. You wait until you don't feel angry anymore. Then you go back in and say, I was feeling extremely angry before. These are the reasons I felt angry. And I felt that you didn't respond to my anger in a way that was helpful for me, or I didn't feel I got the response from you that I was looking for. But it's not up to the other person at all. So, yeah, you can scream until you're blue in the face, but if you go in and scream at someone, they're just going to come back and scream back at you. I would. If you started screaming at me, no, I probably wouldn't. My thing is, if people start screaming and yelling and raising their voice, I usually talk really quietly, so they have to quieten down to hear me. But yeah, I think that it's both, Moira. I think that we have to forgive others and to forgive ourselves. Sometimes you have to forgive yourself for something that is really difficult, to really do. I don't know how to explain that. Sometimes we need to forgive ourselves even when we know we haven't done anything what would be perceived as wrong, but just in the perceiving of it. So sometimes we may not have actually done anything to forgive ourselves for, but we still have to forgive ourselves because we've still taken the pain away from that situation. Does that make sense to you? And I think that sometimes, we want to blame other people. We want to say, you're responsible for my hurt and pain. And that person really probably doesn't give two hoots what you think. So in forgiving them, we can then forgive ourselves for taking that on board and creating that pain for ourselves that really we don't need to do. Hey, Crystal Beauty, how you going? Pure intuition, baby. I like that, Sarah. So I think that is really hard sometimes because some of the things that I guess happened to you in your lifetime, it's really, for example, and we are always hard on ourselves and others. Like, for example, if you've been abused by someone, you may not necessarily see that, especially if you were a child. You may not necessarily have seen that person. This was the last conversation I had with someone. You may not have necessarily, seen what was happening to you at the time as abuse. You may have sort of shut it away. You may not think or talk about it. And when you say to someone about forgiving their abuser, they're like, how can I forgive them for what they did to me? But you have to, otherwise you're going to hang on to the pain and suffering. So how do you explain to someone that the forgiving then is for you to do or for yourself to do if you don't feel that you had any responsibility in that? And I guess that's when it really comes down to forgiving yourself, because you're going to blame yourself regardless of whether that was a responsible thing. You're going to have to let that go some way or whatever, because otherwise it's going to fester in your body and create all sorts of pain for you, and probably really interrupt with your, joy of life. So you have to find some way to forgive. But as I said, you're not forgiving the person for what they've done. You never forgive the person for what they've done. That's not good. But you forgive them for hurting you. And that is about forgiving yourself. And as I said, sometimes you can look at it and think, well, I didn't really do anything here. How can I have to forgive myself? But you have to still forgive yourself for whatever blame you're putting on yourself, even if you don't feel that you were to blame. Now, I know that sounds really weird and a little bit double Dutch, but that's how it works. So you have to find the best way you can to allow that energy to go. And as I said, sometimes when you do it and you're like, I'm going to forgive. So they say, you're supposed to say, I forgive you for what you've done to me. I release your energy, and I wish you the best. That's sort of the general feeling of how you do it. But you've got to feel it, because sometimes you go, oh, you, and then nothing. No feeling. So you've got to stop and think, okay, where is this? Where do I need to release this forgiveness from? And you've got to go with how it feels in your body. And sometimes when you really mean something and you say it, you can feel it release from that part of your body that you've got it stored in. So it might come, from somewhere like your back. It may come from your gut, but you've got to allow it to go from those places. And if you do it, you can feel it going. So if you say it the first time and you can't feel it in your body, then you probably haven't released it. And you need to say it again and again and again until your body thanks you for that. And you'll know when your body's thanking you because you get this lovely sense of it freeing something up, allowing something to go. And you can feel it. That's the really good thing about feeling it in your body. So sometimes, I guess, we may not realize why we've got aches and pains or whatever else, and sometimes they are just really deeply embedded pains that we've not allowed to ourselves to release. Really sad, isn't it? Hey, Goddess 999, how are you going? So it's sort of hard in a way to understand how your body hangs on to things. We always think that this is the only important thing, but your body is so important. And it does store stuff up. And I was trying to think of an example. Okay, I've got an example for you. I worked in youth work for many years. I worked with homeless kids in a refuge. And I've been, Yvonne's such a lovely girl. She's such a lovely girl. She never says anything. She does as she's told. She never says a word. So therefore, we'll just throw everything at her because she'll never say anything. She'll just do it. She'll say yes. So I do time and time again of having things thrown at me, time and time again about, being abused by kids. And, and sometimes seriously, I've been chased around a couple of times with a knife, like seriously had some serious things happened. But being the type of person I was, when people said to me, "You okay? Do you need to speak to somebody?" I'd be like, "Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah." Didn't worry me at all. Poor kid going through such a tough time. No, I'm fine with it. No problem. And then the next time around, it's the same thing. Everybody throwing shit at you again, and you're just going, "Yeah, sure, no worries. I'll do that. Not a problem." And then you're just taking more and more on board. And then one day I went to work and I walked in the door, and one of the workers from upstairs, who was perfectly capable to do things, but then were so many other people too who wanted to dump. I walked in the door on my shift, and it was a very busy shift too because I was at the refuge. So it was very busy. I was on the, doing desk, taking phone calls, sole worker, whole thing, responsibility for usually about 6 to 8 kids who were, sometimes quite confronting. And I walked in the door and she said, "Oh, I'd like you to do all of this stuff today." And she pointed around, there's all these boxes on the floor. "Can you unpack all of those for me and then do this?" And I said, "No." And she, "What's wrong with you? What happened for you? What's your problem? What, did you have a problem at home or something? Why come to work like that?" And I was like, I just said no. And she said, "Well, we need someone to do all that." And I said, "Well, then you're going to have to find someone else to do it because I am way too busy today and I can't do it." And she did not speak to me for such a long time afterwards. And I realized the power of saying no. And I don't think I'd really done that much before. And I went into the office and I had to shut the office door behind me because I was shaking. That's the whole CPTSD thing. Obviously too scared to ever say no at home, grew up with this fear of, never being able to say no to anybody. And I finally said it and I just went into a total meltdown, total panic state. My heart was racing. I was sweating. I wanted to go back and say to her, "I'm really sorry. I'm sorry I said no to you because I feel really bad about saying no." And I thought, no, it needs to stay. I need to get used to saying that. And that was probably, I would have been maybe 38, 39 then. It had taken me a long time to say, "Hey, Shirley, how are you going?" A long time to say that. So what I want to say to you is when we hold on to stuff, and that's what I was trying to use that as an example, when we hold on to stuff and we keep holding on and telling people we're okay when we really are not okay, but we feel that we can't break down or we can't tell them how we really feel and we don't express ourselves, what happens? Where does that stuff go? Where does it go? CPTSD, complex PTSD. But I'll talk to you about that if you like. And so where does it go? It just goes into your body. And then one day somebody says something, and like I said, it's the straw that broke the camel's back, and you just flip out. I really found that so strange that that happened that way, but it made me really conscious of how much I've been holding on to at the time. PTSD usually hits you after a one-off incident. So we see people with PTSD if, they work in a bank and the bank's robbed, or we see it when somebody's been off to war and they've experienced a war. So it's sort of like that reaction. It's the panic attack reaction where you go into fight, flight, or freeze syndrome, and you go into those symptoms of your heart racing really fast. Sometimes you feel like you're going to die, or your brain's going to snap. It's the weirdest feeling. And you just pretty much freak out. And some people run, some people fight. So you see a lot of that in young kids who become very aggressive because that's the way it hits them. And it's a physiological response to something. So what happens is all of your heart starts racing really quickly, and all of your you start producing adrenaline. So everything starts going to your outer regions so you can run. And it's a very old response that we would have had in our bodies to protect us when there were things like saber-toothed tigers around. Like that would have been what you did. You would have gone into a fear mode. You would have got all of your blood racing to your extremities so you could run, fight, or whatever you needed to do. Now, so when someone's faced with something that's really alarming, they will go into that state. And it may only be a one-off thing. It may come because someone's pulled a knife on you, or held you up in the street, or whatever else. And it's generally just a one-off event that stirs that up, and it may quieten down afterwards. Sometimes it doesn't. We've seen people come back from wars like Vietnam where they're carrying that energy around for a really long time. But what happens with C complex PTSD, it's something that happens to you over a long period of time. So it may be if you've had, say, an abusive childhood or some sort of danger at home, what happens is you have that reaction like you would with PTSD, but instead of your body being able to send out the signals for you to quieten back down again afterwards, you're constantly going through that cycle of sending the adrenaline out. So you become hypervigilant. You become very, very sensitive to everything. Noises seem really loud. Things that happen around you seem really overwhelming. You have very, very little tolerance. Yet stress, if you're under stress for a long period of time, that can do it. So if you've, say, got a manager who shouts at you all the time, eventually you can start to develop those symptoms. And what happens is eventually, if you're not freezing and you're not running away from it, we try to run away from it. It's the normal thing to do for most people, is to just hide away, run away. Don't say anything. Just go. Just sort of get on your bike and go. Some people react, and you see these anger bursts come out. But what happens after a period of time, it starts to create so much stress in your body because you're constantly in that state, that hypervigilant state. So something small can happen and pshung, everything just opens up for you. So a lot of people suffer from it if they've had abusive childhoods, even going into adulthood. You may not recognize it, but then what happens is you have certain triggers that set you off. So it might be that somebody does something. If you're really, if noise can be a problem, and somebody makes a really loud noise, like a kid screams or drops something loud, and you just fly out of your skin, and you might scream yourself, and you turn around and start yelling at the kid about it because of the fact that you're already in that hypervigilant state. So it can be very, very damaging because you're just running on adrenaline all of the time. And that's why meditation is so good if you're going through stress, because meditation helps you to put that adrenaline back where it belongs. It sort of calms your body down so you're not over responding to things. But if you go through a stressy period, I don't know, a job's probably a job's probably a good example. If you're going to work every day, right, and then a new manager comes in and they don't like you and they're picking on you left, right, and centre, and you know you should speak up, but you don't because you're still in that, I'll just say yes and that'll be quiet, and then I can avoid conflict and, whatever else. And then that person starts to get a bit confident then because they're dumping on you all the time. So you sort of, they ask you to do more and more and more. And in the end, you find you're doing their job as well because they're just telling you to do everything. So you're going to work every day trying to do everything in a day that you can't do. It's impossible because you're trying to do like the work of 5 people. And then you're probably going to get to a point where your body is so stressed and so tired and so freaking out about what extra you've got to do and whether you're going to manage it in a day, and your stress levels go through the roof, and then you're doing that day after day after day. There's only so much that your body can take. There's only so much you can do. So what happens in the end, there has to be, for every cause there's an effect, right? So there has to be some sort of escape to that. So whether it's or not you fritz out and start yelling back, whether it's you go home and you start screaming at your children and kicking the dog or the cat, whether you totally melt down and you can't do anything, because some people just go in that total freeze state where their body just closes down, which sort of manifests as what we used to see as a nervous breakdown. Or, you can go and, I guess, just keep trying to push through it, and some people just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, thinking that if they push harder, work harder, do more, whatever, and keep throwing themselves at it, that eventually it'll go away. But of course it doesn't, because it stays in your body and it stores and it stores and it stores. And then we wonder why all of a sudden somebody would just have this major collapse because we asked them to pass the salt to us and they've had a meltdown, and we're like, what is your problem? Seriously, I only asked for the salt. And I'm sure we've all seen people do that. But yeah, that's what happens. That's why I say it becomes like cumulative. It doesn't go away anywhere. It just stores itself up until it's released. So what happens to some people is they end up getting a lot of body pain. So they start to develop pains in their body that is not real pain. It is real pain. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It is real pain, but it's come from an internal source rather than something being actually wrong with you in terms of a virus or something. So it's really interesting because it can make people very, very sick, but it's very hard for the doctor to actually determine what is wrong with you. I guess that's the way to put it. So it's more with CPTSD, it's sort of more ongoing, and it's something that's not recognized for years and years, and then all of a sudden you start having these symptoms. So the symptoms come like panic attacks. So if you want to look up a panic attack, breathlessness, you can get heart palpitations, lose breath. Sometimes you feel like you're choking, your brain feels like it's going to snap. But all people have different symptoms for it. But once those symptoms start up, that's pretty much you've got to breaking point then. Psoriasis, yes. Some people break out in psoriasis. Some people lose their hair. That's all the stuff you've kept inside of you that just feels that it doesn't have anywhere to escape to. So it becomes, that's what I was looking for, it becomes like a physical manifestation. So for some people, it actually can create a lot of pain in their body. Cervical cancer. Yep, and it's really funny because I've always for many, many years, that's why I love Louise Hayes, because I always look for what was the metaphysical cause for this. I go to the doctors, I have all my checkups, I do what the doctor needs to do, the dentist needs to do, whatever, but I always look up how could I then lessen that from happening to me again. So it's sort of like you can understand then how emotionally you can stop yourself from happening again. So fibromyalgia is a big one, but although it's still not really sure whether that is a virus or not. But some of the others, yeah, I mean, psoriasis is a really big one. But yeah, hair loss, just loss of life, like depression. Depression and anxiety just walk hand in hand, and they all come from some sort of stresses that not being able to cope, but they all come together sort of thing. Feelings buried alive never die. How very true. No, they've got to go somewhere, unfortunately. So that's why I say to people, you need to make sure you're feeling your feelings, because if you're putting them away and not taking any notice of why you're feeling the way you are, there's a very good chance that you're tucking that feeling away without really acknowledging that it's a feeling. And that's where emotional intelligence or emotional literacy comes in. Are you going to talk about emotional literacy? Because that's about doing exactly that. Yeah, there you go. Suppressing everything, Jess. Yeah. And I mean, you can work with it. I can't say that you can completely cure yourself because I don't really know you can, but I do know people have. You can use energy healing for that. I've just bought a really, really good book. Of course, I have. Um, I've just bought a really good book by Inna Segal. I can't remember the name of it. I'll try and bring it with me tomorrow for you to have a look at. And it shows you how to release. And every time I read up on something, I'm like, of course. So you go and read up on something and you think, well, I've got a really bad chest infection. And you go and read up and it says, you've got a chest infection for these reasons. And of course, the reasons are so obvious to me. I'm like, I know I'm doing that. I have to stop. So we do know it's going on. We do, but we don't acknowledge it. We tuck it away and hope it's going to go somewhere. Yeah, see, there you go. Sarah just said her psoriasis is almost gone since she started emotional release and energy healing. Some people are really good energy coaches. They can go into your body and they can move energy along. I can do a little bit of it. I'm probably not near as good as some of the people I know because they do expressly. So they're really in touch with that. But what they do is they go into your body and they find where the pain is stored. And then once they find out where the pain is stored and for whatever reason, they can help you to clear it away. And they can do some of that clearing for you. And they can do it remotely just by going into your body. So it's a little bit like Reiki, I guess, that you can do it remotely, but it's a lot more intensive in that they can actually tell what time, what age, and what situation might have caused you to put that away. She's just saying her specialists actually work with visualization, power of the mind. Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, we don't really think about it, do we? We get sick, we all do it. We get sick, we go to the doctors, and you're sitting there thinking, I've got this thing wrong. What is wrong with me? And it just helps to know that sometimes you may have sort of added to that by suppressing, anger or hurt or pain of some kind. It's just the way we do things. And it depends. Sometimes you sort of think, okay, I'll use a personal example again. I've had a really bad shoulder for some time. When I asked Spirit about it, they told me it was my rotator cuff, and I was trying to work out. I never even heard of a rotator cuff, so my spirit knows more than me. My guide knows more than me. Rotator cuff, and I was like, okay, what have I done? Because it hurts sometimes when I did things. But you see, sometimes the hurt and pain we can carry around with us like a burden on our shoulder. It could be that someone's given you the cold shoulder. Someone won't talk to you and help you to release up any emotional pain. So as I was saying before, say, for example, someone's hurt your feelings, may have not explained to you why they did what they did. It's really cruel to you because what happens is if you can't talk that through, if you can't express yourself and express your own feelings, then you put them inside your body and they manifest as something. So then you've got to find some way then to forgive that person so you can release the pain that they've left behind. So it's good to know what the metaphysical part of that is because that will help you to heal. So you still may have to have physiotherapy. You still might have to go to specialists, but having the idea of what caused it is a really big one. So rejection, feeling rejected, big one for your shoulder. So I would strongly recommend if you do have anything wrong, doesn't matter what it is, go and Google it. Google metaphysical illness and have a look at what the person has written about metaphysical illness, just to understand whether you have had some sort of problem, issue, hurt, pain that you've had that may have manifested in your body that's assisted with that. Now, you may still have to go to the physiotherapist. You may still have to go to the doctor, whatever it is. But it will happen. The other thing I can remember was having a fasciitis in the foot. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that. It's very painful. I had it in one foot. And it was so painful, I could barely walk. When I got out of bed in the morning, it was excruciating. But as the day went on, it got better. And I started to do exercises for it. I started to really look into what it was, what was wrong with my foot. And I found out I had this thing called fasciitis. It's got a much longer name, but it's the muscle that runs along the middle of the bottom of your foot. And it creates so much pain, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so after a while, it just wouldn't go away. And I thought, I'm going to have a look it up. Plantar fasciitis. Thanks, Shishi. Good to have someone on board who's a medical professional. It's the most painful thing in the world. I had to go to Hawaii with it, and I was walking everywhere. And of course, while you're walking, it's fine. It sort of loosens up and it's fine. Then you go to bed at night, and it just is so painful. Anyway, so I went and had a look what it meant. And I remember reading up on it and thinking, you won't walk away from something, right? You won't walk away from something. So you've kept yourself trapped in some sort of situation that you are not prepared to walk away from. And it was so true. And I went, right, now I know what it is. I need to fix it. So I did. I walked away. And guess what? It went away too. So there's sort of like this feeling your body's going to store things that you're not expressing, you're not doing something with it. So very, very important because it will manifest as physical pain. Yep. Do you remember when you got yours? Do you ever look back and wonder when you got yours? I mean, it's really painful. And what was happening for you at the time. But anyway, it's really good to know. And I mean, I can see, Jess and Sarah talking about this, knowing that people, they hold on to everything. Yeah, everything. It just manifests in your body the way you are not expressing it. So it is really interesting, Hayley. And as I said, you still need to go to the doctors. You still need to get your checks. I mean, if you've got a chest infection, it's because you're not speaking up and speaking about things that hurt, or, you may have been hurt or upset about something and you end up with a chest infection because you haven't expressed yourself, or throat infections. These are really good examples. You may still need to have a doctor's advice. You may still need to have medical advice. But what I'm saying is, having the realization of what's occurred before that's occurred will help you understand how to not have it again. Your body is so incredibly good. There you go. See, Gigi just said you'd be surprised at how many people seek medical attention for physical ailments from emotional damage. Some of the ones that I've seen time and time again, and I've said to people, that have gone to hospital thinking they're having a heart attack, and I've stood there and thought, that just sounds like an anxiety attack to me. You sound like you're having a panic attack. And they're like, no, I'm having a heart attack. I'm like, well, you need to go to the hospital and check then. If you think you're having a heart attack and you feel that strongly, go to the hospital and check it out, because it's not, hey, Moonstone, how you going? It's okay, to go to the hospital and get checked, because if it makes your anxiety better to know that there's nothing wrong with you, then maybe you will understand why you're having anxiety. So I think it probably happens more times than what we realize. You were on holidays in Germany at the time. Did you not want to be in Germany? Did you not want to be in Germany? Were you in Germany, but you didn't want to be there? That's what I'd ask. Because yes, and that's what I said, don't discount the medical professional, because I think that you do need to have things checked, and you do need to know that you're okay. And you may need, you may have left it so long that you do need to have medication to put it right. There's every chance that you might have to have antibiotics if you've got a chest infection. But what you can do is you can be aware of what added to it next time, so that you can avoid it rather than get yourself there. Too much walking. There you go. Tonsillitis all the time, and now hypothyroidism, because you've always held in your words. Yep, the whole children should be seen and not heard thing. See, there you go. It's really interesting, isn't it? But we don't really give our bodies enough credit for what they're capable of, because we're so taught to live in our logical mind, right? We're taught from a very young age that things don't exist, therefore the brain is the only thing you really need to get by. So, yeah, and as I said, why not give yourself the extra education about it? Do it. Find out why. I don't remember. the Feelings Buried Alive Never Die symptom chart. It will tell you the symptoms and the emotions that cause them. Yeah, the book I've got's really good too. Much the same, only she teaches you how to heal by doing certain exercises and asking your body to release the energies and working with the release and the forgiveness. How to sort of ask your body to heal itself, which is quite interesting too. So, yeah, that's sort of part of what I've been learning at the moment, which has been pretty interesting. Really, yeah, Reiki healing. You know what? And as I said, you don't have to. You don't have to say to people, "Oh, are you worried about this or are you doing that?" You can find some way of just saying, maybe it's a good idea to have a look at this or have a look at that if you've got pain somewhere. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to talk people out of having proper medical checks. But as I said, it helps to know that you can heal yourself if you want to. You've got to want to too, of course. So yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting indeed. Anyway, I better get back to work. I've got a few things to do this afternoon. I've had a bit of a hectic day today, and I've got lots of stuff to do. So I think I might get back to it. Oh, your mother. You've got the really spiritual mum, don't you, Gigi? Didn't you say that you had a mum that helped you with your spiritualism? I do it with my kids too. You know, if they've got something wrong, I try. My son's just doesn't listen to me at all, so waste of time trying to talk to him about it. But my daughter does. The other daughter not so much, but the youngest one will. She will learn from what I say, and sometimes I say to her, "You need to sort of do this or do that," and she'll listen. But yeah, I don't know that all kids do. All right, I'm going. Thank you, Moira, for reminding everybody for the thumbs up on the screen. I forget to tell people with my videos too. It helps you get visibility, apparently. But I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday. Yay! Psychology teacher. Oh, your mum was she? Fantastic. I'm glad that she used it in a very practical way for you, though. I'll hear you howling from here, Sarah. I'm glad that your mum did it in a practical way rather than sort of shoving stuff at you all the time, and that you learned from her. I think that's really important. And I'll bring that book with me tomorrow. So Saturday tomorrow, not sure what time I'll get on tomorrow. Maybe a similar time. I seem to get quite a lot of people around this time. That's why I thought of doing the classes around this time of the day. It means early mornings for some countries, late nights for others, but it used to annoy you. Mums annoy you. That's what they do. You got children yourself now. You would understand that. My daughter says to me all the time that, she realizes how being a mother changes the way, because she's got the children, the youngest one. The other one doesn't have any children. And she always says to me, she doesn't realize how being a mother affects you differently to before you've had children. Like, she was talking to her kids one day. You know, when kids do they take their arms out of their sweaters and they put their whole body in the jumper part. And they say to the kids, don't do that. You're going to stretch a jumper. Put your arms back in. And you will, go back and have a look, Moonstone. It's good to get the readings. And I heard my daughter speaking to her daughter like that. And I was like, I can hear it. See, I can see it. You're becoming your mother. All right, I'm going. Have a great evening. Mwah, love you all.